waiting for you. Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you. Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you. Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you. Our lives are dark and our hearts are broken. Now is the time for your intervention. There are no choices left, there is no option, there is no hope left. You are the chosen. Our souls are dying whilst we are still alive. How can we go on?
Now, table number 6 was actually a table that we didn't assign a question to. There was no group for it. But it's actually the most important question here. And it's, has multiculturalism enabled or hindered your full participation in Canadian society? And it's something I want our resident experts to be thinking about as they answer and keep it in mind for the discussion. So I want all of you to think about number 6, basically. Number 7. It has been claimed that new Canadians want economic integration, but not social integration. Discuss if it's true. Number 7.
Hi. So we had a big brainstorm for a while. We had a lot of thoughts. I'm realizing now that we didn't really come to an answer, so I hope what I say is somewhat coherent. Okay, so we started by defining social integration. So we thought it was interacting with multiple cultures that are outside your home default Muslim community. And also interacting outside of work and school, so what's necessary. So I guess broadly we thought that it's also not fair to look at new Canadians as a homogenous group. So we talked a little bit about, well, if you're here, there's a difference between being here because you were originally a refugee or an immigrant. If you're a refugee, you sort of burnt your boats and you can't go back, so social integration is a must just to survive. Whereas if you're an immigrant, I think the example that came to my mind was sort of the wave of immigrants that came from the Middle East. So in my parents' social circle, there are a lot of people who kind of think of Canada as like a place where you can get a passport of convenience. It's sort of like a launch pad for your kids. They can get their schooling here and then do well. So economic integration is definitely a priority, but because they can leave, the migration is not over. Social integration is something they can just skip over. And because we're in Toronto, you can find a bubble insular community and just never integrate with the rest of Canada. And okay, we also talked about how there's a sequence, I guess, where sometimes often economic integration precedes social integration. And then one of the brothers at our table talked about how if you don't have the gift of gab, like me, you kind of I think the first step is just to be adjusted economically, and then you can move on to kind of socializing and integrating that way. And then also as a community, we feel the stigma of being economically marginalized more so than being socially marginalized. I don't even think the latter is a problem for a lot of people, or they don't consider it to be a problem. So maybe they just don't value social integration. And then also, maybe it's a little unfair to contrast the two, because economic integration is more of a bread and butter issue. Your first priority is to feed your kids, and then you can kind of work your way up to social integration. And that has to be more of a conscious process. And then we kind of wrapped up our discussion with barriers to social integration, which are always changing, so maybe they were the same or maybe they were different for new Canadians back then as compared to now. So for example, I think we were talking a little bit about the Sikh community doing really well on the social integration front, and then somebody said, well, maybe it's because they can drink, and so schmoozing and boozing go together. So that's not something we're going to compromise, but well, yeah. Okay. And then dietary restrictions. If you go to social functions, that's something that might be a problem. Although it's getting much better now. And also messages from the pulpit. So a youngin from our group said that, she's heard messages in the past where from the pulpit saying, well, you should surround yourself only with Muslim people to make, so you don't lose your faith. And I mean, that's going to discourage you from integrating socially. But to end off on a positive note, we also talked about facilitators of social integration. So I think the same youngin said that she really values the public school system and having interacted with different people from different faiths, because in the end that actually reinforced her faith. So yeah.
Good to go?
Yeah, wrapping up. So yeah. All right, so those were our thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, table number 7. Table number 8. Has racism affected your progress to integrate in Canadian society? Table number 8.
So, have you heard the question? Has racism affected your progress to integrating the Canadian society? Now, we went around the table, and just before I start off, a lot of these responses and I guess solutions are probably overlapping, from the previous ones there. But just going around the table, I think mostly, not overwhelmingly, but mostly the answer was yes. Racism has affected our progress. Some of them still do. Others, they initially experienced it, and now it's gotten better. There were a couple of individuals who basically said, we've never experienced this. Now, I think it all depends on how we look at it, but just to explain some of the yes answers, we had individuals saying that, okay, they experienced racism as Muslims, as visible minorities. One individual went and said, hey, you know what, I've experienced racism as a non-project. And it's not that we are not aware of it, so it's there. Some of us talked about Canadian experience, that being asked Canadian experience when you look for a job. I don't think this is related to racism. I mean, we have seen even any non-visible, non-Muslim Canadians being asked this, so we did discuss this. So, like I say, there's a couple of individuals in our group who said they've never experienced it. And it could be a number of things. It could be profession related, it could be skill related, it could be related to the organization you work for, or it could be the individuals you're surrounded by who can better relate to our values, our cultures. Now, as far as what we can do about it, like I said, some of the solutions do overlap. Okay, and one of the discussions, one of the points that came up with is if we were to relate better to the people around us who are non-Muslims, who are non-visible minority, and it could be topics of discussions, whether it's talking about hockey or sports or say watching to go a football game or whatever. We don't have to be drinking, we don't have to be eating bacon or drinking booze or whatever, and they do appreciate that. But maybe that way they can relate better to, hey, you know what, these guys are like us, maybe they're Muslims, but they're more like us. So we don't have to adopt their culture or habits. Another one that came up was, and I think this was the one that overlaps, is to educate and inform. And one individual did mention that the negativity, especially after 9/11, was addressed by talking to the employees or employers and trying to educate them. This is who we are, this is what we do. Yeah, well, of course, there are minority Muslims who do this. So that does help. And quickly wrapping up, it's associating again, it's overlapping again with outside communities and organizations. Mosaic Interfaith is one that we heard, it's social and cultural organization. And last one is is, one that Dr. Walji mentioned is get out of our comfort zone. We are too comfortable in our own cocoons. We need to get out. I mean, it's very convenient. We sit at home in our communities, go to the Koja mosque or watch Indian dramas or whatever, and we don't want to get out of that comfort zone. We need to do that. One last point that came up before I leave is maybe it's just inferiority complex. Right? Something we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, table number 8. Table number 9. Discuss your personal commitment to Canada compared to your children. So obviously a baby boomer wrote this question. So obviously it's parents if you're, our generation. All right, thanks.
Assalamu alaikum. So in our table we have a variety of age groups, kind of the younger generation and older generation. So one thing we came to consensus of, the fact that we all live in Canada gave us some level of commitment to being here and to being part of society. We talked about civic engagement and integration. So there's levels, like we vote, some people get more involved in political parties, some must volunteer more, socially, educationally, vocationally as well. So we all have a different level of commitment. But I think it all stems from the parent, society, and media, pretty much, right? But it always starts at home. The way we can, the way I look at it is that my dad came here in '66, I believe, right? So he came here after partition, moved to Pakistan. In Pakistan, he moved here. So I feel he has got a lot of. He loves Canada. So he's always integrated himself into Canada, but he always thought himself as a Muslim Canadian first, right? So and it kind of bleeds onto your children as well. If you have a commitment to Canada, then your children have much more commitment to Canada, and it also stems from your religion aspect too, because I feel that if you be a Muslim Canadian, it'll. Sorry, I'm not really good at public speaking.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Thanks. So at the end of the day, you gotta start at home, right? So I guess that's. Yeah, I have all these notes, but nothing making sense right now. So just to cap it off. I believe that your children's commitment will only go towards your commitments. So if you're more committed to your country, and it doesn't mean you have to put your country ahead of your religion, because at the end of the day, we have to be Muslim first, and we should not sacrifice our religious beliefs to feel that we need to be integrated into Canada.
Thank you, table number 9. Our last question is a fun one. Number 10. If Canada was in a sports competition or at war, actually that's not very fun, or at war with your homeland, who would you support and why? Table number 10.
Alrighty, so we thought that the level of support is dependent on one's feelings and emotional attachment to something. So in regards to the question, our answers varied because our answers were based on our sense of belonging and community that we've created for ourselves in Canada. So some of us supported Canada, some of us supported our homeland. So some of the reasons why some of us supported Canada was comparing our homelands in Canada, the lifestyle in Canada is better because we have more opportunities, so we have better facilities, we have more technology, we have the resources that we need. And so this is comparing to Africa or Pakistan and stuff like that. And another reason is for younger generations, we have grown up in Canada, so we've created our own community in Canada. As for the older generation, they created their life beginning in their home countries, so they're used to that lifestyle. In Canada, for younger generations, we've created our own lifestyle at the beginning. Some of the reasons why some of us supported our homeland was because you may have family there, so there's an emotional attachment. So you've created a life with your family there, and especially if you have kids or relatives and stuff in your homeland, it's a lot more. You're a lot more attached because it's on a personal level. So that was kind of for sports, and for war, because it's a lot more serious and kind of political, we had some varying opinions. So as a group, we concluded that it's mostly a moral and ethical decision. So we would have to consider why the war is happening and the reason behind it. So why, for example, one country is bombing the other. So and then some of us were for the war at all because we didn't think that violence was the issue to it. So we thought in more peaceful manner kind of thing, so we could reason by dialoguing and compromising with the other country. And so some of us were in favor of supporting our homeland and some of us were in favor of supporting Canada.
Till number 10. I think you're the youngest person, and that's a stereotype up here. So can everyone just give her a round of applause for coming up here? 17 years old, everybody. That's good. Thank you. Go Canada. All right.
You've earned it for sure.
My God, these two speakers must be shivering in their pants. Where I started. Anyway, Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Listen, we can go right. I'm talking about my personal experience. I am highly indebted to this country for having welcomed me in this part. Not only me, but my entire family. In the way they have taken care of us. I call this country more Islamic, than so-called Islamic countries. There are principles in their constitution which are more Islamic. Now, the reason I was saying in your early deliberation, I was expecting you, when you migrated to this country in the 60s, and so I came 10 years later after you came. At that time, and the 60s Canada and 70s Canada and today's Canada, there is a difference. When we came, there was one group, Canadian group. Now, we are known as Canadian, but we are still called ethnic group. Before, when we bought a house or when we moved anywhere, we were surrounded by Canadians. I'm sorry, now I'll have to distinguish Canadians and whom I'm talking Canadians. I'm talking white kids. So, they are as good brothers as this ethnic group. Anyway, now, they slowly moved away. Either they are in Barrie, Windsor, or remote area. No, more north. So now we are assimilating, what is this word we are talking about? Assimilate or integrate with world society. We are doing more with our own brothers in day-to-day life because we are surrounded with ethnic. Now, the other thing is, I heard from many speakers years about our belief in our faith.
Ask your question.
Sorry, my question. I already asked my question.
Yeah.
Yes, to elaborate now.
Yeah.
The Canada of 60s and Canada of 2030.
Oh, is that your question?
Yes,
Okay.
I have. Please, give me two.
Okay.
Okay, let me put it as a question. Unfortunately, these people will hate me. The belief system. The belief system hasn't stopped us anywhere to integrate or assimilate. Drinking or excuse of drinks and non-halal food. No, that's an excuse. We as a Muslim have definitely failed to assimilate in the area. Now this is my question again. Which area are we looking? Media, politics, or more so business and economics? Right? Once we assimilate there, we'll be more recognized, we'll have more power to say in every section. But let's not. I think we have to spend more than 200 days in a year in the mosque, if you count all the wafats and all the gurus and everything. Instead, if you just spend more days in our other activities, we would have been far more better progressive. So my question is, our beliefs, the way we have taken it, not the way Prophet Muhammad laid to us or God laid to us, we have totally misunderstood it. And the way we have laid it, it has become a hindrance. Has it become a hindrance? That's the question now. Maybe Dr. Marcy can answer that. Thank you very much.
I would very much like to dump all the religious questions to this man here. So that relieves me from the responsibility of saying anything. But he is not about to take that responsibility very freely. So somehow I will be dragged into this. So I will try to deal with it as much as I can. And then we leave it to Dr. Walji here to save my skin. Now, there was a mention of racism here. I will be very naive if I told you in my 47 years of me being here, I have never experienced racism. I'll be very naive because you know what? But I am not conscious, I can tell you this much, I am not conscious of racism being practiced against me. That does not mean it has not been practiced. I feel that if you are looking for things, you will find them. I can bring a team of cleaners here to clean this hall, and if you want to look for dirt, you will find it. So, let's not look for dirt, let's look for the positive aspect of it. Now, I have used my racism to my advantage. I'll tell you why. I used to manage a company called Eastern Sound, a recording studio. CFRB and Standard Broadcasting acquired the company. One day I get a call from the secretary of the president to say, Mr. Hartford would like to take you out for lunch. And the limo and him will come on your office at 12:15. Will you be ready? I say, yes. So I get into it and I sit with Mr. Hartford. He's taking me now to Granite Club. And he says to me, when we were checking on your company, everywhere, your company is synonymous with you. Everybody says, oh, Salim Sachadina. So as if you own the company. But I didn't. So he said to me, how can a man of color, he said to me, run and manage this company, which is international, and which is in a mainstream society? I said, and do a good job. He said, you know what? I said, I use my color to my advantage. He said, is there one? I said, yes, there is. I could walk into any office without appointment and tell the secretary, I want to see the boss. Now, two things happen in her head. First of all, she said, why should she accommodate me? I made no appointments ahead of time. Why? Then the second side to her is that if I turn him down, he might take this as a racial slur. Right? So now, she will bend backwards to try to convince the president to see me. And I see through the glass window, she's talking to him and he said, and she's talking to him, and finally she comes in, Mr. John will see. I said, so we have to be smart about situation. We can't ignore the fact that people are prejudiced on many levels, racist, and some people are prejudiced on religious basis, prejudice on income basis. So prejudice will ever happen. You think our own country back home, we are free from prejudice? No, we are not. You know, in India we have caste systems. Okay? In Pakistan there are Punjabis and there are the Baluchis and they are fighting among each other. So we cannot avoid those situations, we have to accept them. The question for my friend Hussein Chagani about things were different then from things that are different now. Things of course are different now because they change, everything changes. Nothing remains the same. The only thing which is true about change is there for change. But in relative terms, things have not changed. You know, the good old days of the past are the good old days of today when we look at them 20 years from now. So things, every day, every age brings its own opportunities and its own challenges. We just have to be smart to deal with them. When you and I came in the early days, you came to me one day and said, You came as a farmer from Mosh. You ran the coffee farm, and you said you wanted to dwell into farming. I had made a friend, a Canadian, who was into farming. Now, how is that? When I first came here, I told myself, how do I meet Canadians in their personal life? So, Ontario government had this farm vacation packages. So I looked at them, I found a young farmer couple, and I called them, and I arranged for my family and I to go there and spend a week with them. So we lived with the farm. He was a dairy farmer, and we became a good personal friend. He and his wife are still my friends, 40 years down the line. So when Hussein came with the farming in mind, I took him to this farmer. I said, you must meet him. And we went and spent some time with them, and then Hussein decided the farming here is much tougher because the farmer himself has to work hard. He used to run an empire with 100,000 Africans working for him, and he became a farmer. He never knew one coffee bean from another. So he changed his mind. So things have not changed drastically, they remain almost the same. When you say to yourself that people have moved away to suburbs, no, people have always moved away to suburbs. They've always done it. Okay? But you understand one thing. All Ishnach is why do we all live in Richmond here? We create our own ghettos. Every time I meet you people for dinner, you always take me to this halal restaurant up in Richmond here. I said, the halal restaurant in Toronto. But you never come. So everybody likes to live in a surrounding and create their own ghetto, as Bashir would say. Right? So this is what we have to stay away from. I tell you what happened. During the war with Japan, the Japanese people were here marked as targeted. And the Japanese people lived in one area. So what the government did, they stand the edges and caught them all, and they're all fishing in BC. They all got them in and they put them in internship. After the war was over and they were freed, the children of the Japanese families, the community, they confronted their parents as to why did this happen. Because Japanese people were never integrated into the mainstream society. Today, Japanese people here have only cultural center. They do not have anything else. If a Japanese family is looking for a home, the first thing he's going to ask the real estate agent, are there any Japanese people here? And if he says they are, he says, let's go somewhere else. So they are against establishing ghetto because they have suffered by establishing ghetto and they were put in internship. Now, if they had not done it, I don't know, they would still be ended up in internship. I do not know it. But history as it is, we have to read it the way it is. Social pressure of drinking. I have abstained from drinking throughout my life, although I have been in advertising business where the degree of promiscuity and substance abuse is very, very common. I made my living out of it. Now if I told a mullah, he may not like it. One day we made a deal with Labas Brewery. So one of the Maulana came to me. He said, I hear business is good. I said, yes, it's fantastic. He says, and I hear that you made a deal with a major corporation. I said, yes, I made a deal with a major corporation. Then he says to me, I hear that the major corporation is in the brewery business. I said, yes, it is. Oh, that's no good. I said, no. I said, I made sure that you would not ask me this question. So what I did was we asked them to pay us from the milk division. So he says to me, well, in that case, can we have your donation? And you know, the boss had milk division, those still have them. Alt Milk is their company. It used to be. So I have had more pressure from Muslim drinking wanting me to drink with them than I have had from Caucasian Canadians. Because you go with them for first time, you explain to them, I don't drink. And they said, fine, they respect you, and they leave you alone. But I have been with Muslims who drink, they want you to join them so that you do not talk against them down the line. They want one thing against you. If we say we are here for economic reason, then it really is a self-serving attitude. It's the very attitude that we did not serve us well in East Africa. We cannot, you see, we have to, any relationship we have, we take the full package, good and bad. You can't take the good and leave the bad, because then it's not your commitment. In the relationship, human being, husband and wife, you think they love everything about each other, in every aspect of it? No, they're not. No? So, except for me, I'm perfect. So we don't really get this. So what happens then is this economic expansion, economic prosperity also depends on socializing. Because you meet people, look, there's an Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce. How many of us are members of that? We are not. We are few, only 2 or 3, not more less. Now, why don't we become member of Indo-Canadian? Because this same institution takes the Prime Minister of Canada and takes him to India and sign the Minister of Trade. They are very high profile. We should be part of them. We should be part of them. If you want to play in that level, we should be. We can't all be rag business. You know, there's much more to be done. You know, it's not how you make money. It's not how much money you make. It's how you make it. Anybody can be a rag business. It's not a big deal. You know, you buy those rags from Salvation Army and bear them into 100-pound boat and ship them to your brother in Africa, and you make money. That's a big deal. That's not a big deal. Now, so you have to really come in the mainstream. Whether you are in media business or you are in this business, that doesn't matter. I have been always in a non-traditional Khoja business. I always been out of it. And you know what? I have not suffered. And I can tell you one thing. I may not be a very religious person, and I'm glad I'm not. But I have been a good ambassador of Islam. People have asked me what makes me tick, right? And I know. So in that sense, we are all ambassadors of Islam. We go out. Quran is a book. Collection of hadiths are narratives. They mean nothing if you don't act on it, and if you don't work on it, if you don't take the values that it tells you and it prescribes and you use it in your daily life and you make a difference to other people. So what I'm saying, you don't see, there are 2 aspects of religion. There's a hazard and there's batin. Am I right? Hazard is what you do on the surface. You wear your hijab, you hear namaz, you do things openly. They are open. But they are inner piety that we all have, which is really the one that drives you. So if you have strength in your inner piety, you can go and integrate and assimilate in any society you want, and you will still remain true to yourself. You will never be changed.
Practicality, be it racism, be it integration, it's there. It's being an example for the rest of society out here. If you act in a manner that you should be as a good human being, then you'll be seen as a good Muslim. Being a good Muslim and being a good human being are not mutually exclusive. But we have to begin with being good human beings. That is what our Maker expects of us. And if we preamble it with that, then a lot of these issues that we have, integration, assimilation, racism, blocks in the way, are all things where I personally feel that we consider this as victim mentality and how we turn it around. Just as Salim gave the example as to how racism affects you and how you deal with it. I wrote my first book, it took me 6 years. Somehow get it published, and I know what it took to get the first book published. And then my agent takes me to an old English company, very reputable, Hodder and Stoughton, even the name seems kind of rather high and mighty. And Hodder and Stoughton editorial team, 3 men in grey suits, in dark wall, wood-enameled wall, sat across the table with me, and my agent and I were sitting on the other side. And we were pitching for me to get to write a series of books on natural medicine, 6 books, which was a great breakthrough for me personally as an author. And this one man looks at me in the eye and he says, "English is not your first language. What makes you think that you'll make a good writer for us?" And my response to him was, I said, "I have a very good English editor who will do the job. I have not come here for my English. I have come here to offer you my services, that I am a bridge between the academia and the consumer when it comes to nutritional information. And that's why I'm here, because what's in the ivory towers is not being conveyed to the consumer, and I'm here as a bridge." And I got the contract. But I could have walked away from there saying, "This man is so racist, he's asking me this question," and I would have lost the contract. Those 6 books, alhamdulillah, gave me the opportunity to be established as an author, ending up writing many more books in that. That's history. But the point is, I'm saying that if you look for victimization, then you will find it. But if you're positive, particularly for my young friends, if you're positive and confident of your identity as a good human being with values of compassion, generosity, morality and all that, then you don't have to wear your religion on your sleeve, as Salim rightly says. And truly, this is something that we need to go to. So, I had a chance of a conversation with the wonderful ladies who were sitting at the back who did not have the questions. They were looking after and doing the most important work, which was the work of raising and looking after the next generation. And I went to that table and I asked them a couple of questions about their concerns and issues within this subject matter. And something that they told me, and this is something that I've been thinking about, I want to share with this audience. Sending our children to Muslim schools is something that we have mixed feelings on. Even parents have mixed feelings. Send my kid to a Muslim school. Will that child really be able to integrate into the wider society? Because I can't give them an Islamic or a Muslim university. When they grow up, they can't go to a Muslim hospital, so-called, or whatever, and how are they going to adjust and assimilate? And this is a question that we as a community need to think through in our zeal to try and force Islamic values down the throat of our kids is the biggest mistake that we would make in our lives. Yes, we should have schools. We should be proud to have schools which are fantastic educational establishments where people would want to send their children to, whether they're Muslims or non-Muslims. That is the kind of schools. If I am going to say that I am going to have a Shia school with Shia teachers and no non-Muslims would be permitted on this, that is a biggest mistake this community is making, and it is making it right now. It had better think about it. When we talk, let us also not just discuss and talk, let us apply these principles to say that we are here to share the wonderful teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam with the wider world. Why do we not open our schools to non-Muslim teachers and non-Muslim children so that we can all come together and become a role model for the Canada as we see it or the USA we see it. Mominin, this is the vision that needs to be had by the leadership and by the people of this community. Now, it's no point saying the leadership needs to do this. People need to vote with their feet if they see something like this. We talked about the pulpit, saying you cannot have non-Muslim friends or restrict your relation with non-Muslims at a level so that you will be influenced by them. That is the biggest oxymoron that I've heard anybody saying from the pulpit. You hear something like from the pulpit, stand up, have the courage and say, I don't agree with you. Do that once and you will see how many times something like that will be repeated, from our pulpits. We have to be conscious as a community, as we nurture this generation, as to where we are going to be. The question of trust, I think Bashir Bhai put it so well to say it's not a matter of we trust. It's a question as to how we behave where the outside community, if you can call it an outside community just for the sake of explanation, if the wider society is going to trust us with our competence in professions, with our competence as medical doctors, with our competence as trustworthy people. That is the basis where we talk about integration or being further engaged into this society. And I think we need to stop wearing this idea of righteousness on our sleeve. Not everybody is corrupt, and it is not only us who have suddenly descended from the heavens to be that selected and the chosen community who hold all the values of truth and trust and compassion and everything that we have. When you look at the wider society, every parent has the same aspiration for their child, whether that parent is a Jew or a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist. Every human being has a fitra to say that I want to raise a progeny that I can be proud of, who will be compassionate, who will be just, and who will be a good human being. So let's not just look around and see that we are the only ones, and if we now so much as touch others, we'll become so najis so that we can never go to heaven. And lastly, I want to leave just one final comment, and I'm sure my friend Hussein and others are raring to kind of comment on our comments. By the way, I had one more comment which I should have made right at the outset. In golf they have handicaps. Well, I'm handicapped because I'm not Canadian. So whatever I say is from a US experience. No, I'm just kidding. I think the experience is universal. I spent 20 years of my life in Africa, 20 years of my life in the UK, and 20 years of my life, and a little bit more, and I won't admit to how much more, of my life in the United States. And I have no shame, no hesitancy, and in fact I'm proud to say that I became a better Muslim having lived in the United States. So let me leave you with one quote. That home, we define, because to be engaged, you have to call it watan. The idea of watan, or as they say, desh prem in Gujarati. The idea of watan. What is home? Because if you don't feel at home, then you are not engaged. And by the way, the confusion between assimilation and integration, some people kind of were kind of worried. Well, the great example we had was the two kinds of rice that we had. You had the sort of either the Turkish or the Afghani rice, and then you had the typical, I think, Indian, Pakistani style rice that we had. Now, if you took them on a plate and you put them on two separate sides and you enjoyed both of them with equal sort of vigor, but taking one after the other, that's integration in a plate. We kept the different tastes aside. Assimilation would have mixed up the whole thing and ate it up. Now it's a matter of taste. Do you really want to assimilate and become vegetable soup? Or do you prefer a salad where each culture can retain its own flavor and color and taste and whatever? So that's the difference between assimilation and integration. But the last gift that I would like to leave with this is, I was talking about watan, that home is not where my grandfather was born. Home is where my grandson is going to grow up. If we can have that as an understanding as to where we are at, I think we can become, and inshallah we are going that way. The very fact that we're having this discussion is a beginning of a movement to say that yes, we are moving towards that, where we consider home as a place that we are going to raise the next generations of this community as good human beings, good Muslims, good Canadians, and whatever other labels that we want to put to ourselves. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And ever since I set my eyes on her, I have been referring to her as Smiley. And today, I was taken and challenged. She says, the mother says, that's not Smiley, that's a Koji. Assimilation, integration. But this meeting here today, it's about way forward. It's about Smiley. Please, this is what it is. With the verse that comes to mind from the Holy Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Kuntum khayran ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas. تعمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمن بالله. That we're not asking anybody to be one of the melting pot. You're not another Jones. Be who you are with that level of responsibility of bringing about a sense of unity towards mankind. And then if there is any disconnect in the process, be that catalyst to bring it to life together. As united, we would stand as true Canadians, that we call this place. You called it about home. Somebody asked me, where is home for you? And where are you from? And I tell you what, I get a real chuckle and attention every time my response. I said, believe it or not, I am from this world. So then turn around and says, where is home? I said, this is home where I am today. And I'll leave you with that. To open the floor, I'm sure the rest of you want to take, they're here as live targets to answer your questions. So little kind arrows, please. Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, let me ask you a quick, just to follow up on Saint Ghani's question. Do you feel that the Muslim events, the Muslim practices interferes with our ability to integrate? That was his final part of his question. Do you guys have an opinion on that? He was saying that there's like 200 events a year with wafats and with shahadats and with everything. And Jewish communities, Christian communities is far less intense in terms of involvement. Do you feel like it interferes at all?
Okay. Number one, to be Muslim is that you practice your faith. You say your prayers. You do the 5 requisites, and you are faithful to those beliefs. But the other aspect of religion are rituals. You don't have to go to every Wafat Majlis to be a Muslim. You don't have to go to every Kushali Majlis to be a Muslim. So you can really trim it down or increase it depending on where you are in your life. But she these days wants to go to mosque every day if we can't go. So and I am working, so I have no time for that. So it depends on how you train it. So as far as I'm concerned personally, I can only do this personally, that I have not been affected adversely being a Muslim. In fact, being a Muslim is not a bad thing. It is advantageous for you. People do ask you questions and they ask you what you are. They try and want to know more about you beyond what they hear about it and read about it in the media. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't have a question, it's just a statement for all of us to kind of take into consideration when we are talking about assimilation or integration. Our JCC Center in, I think in whole of North America is our pride for what it is. Now if somebody did me a favor, am I not obliged to give him the due consideration for the favor that he or she did to me? In building of JCC, those of us who have contributed funds, we receive our tax deductible receipts. Okay? The portion of the tax deduction that we received was paid for by the larger community, the taxpayers of Canada. So they have also contributed towards building of JCC that we should not forget. This point was clarified to me by Raza, who is my tax expert. It's not me, it is Raza's point, and we need to think about these things. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I have two comments. And the first one is directed to Brother Hussain. He talked about our Islamic schools. I've been on a long journey on Islamic schools. Over time, my opinion has changed. For people that are fairly active in Toronto, one of the very, very good schools, Islamic schools in Toronto, is the school run by the Islamic Foundation of Toronto. If you have 8 number 1 schools, that school is number 1. Till that school did not achieve that status, and I've done a lot of work with them and with the principal and with the board. So I know that school quite well. I have a very different opinion. Since then, I've come to the conclusion it is not an Islamic school that you need. The Islamic school that we have has to be the tops. That Islamic school, their kids compete in competitions, debates, essays, you name it. They have a number of kids that win that scholarship. A very large percentage goes to University of Toronto on scholarships, top universities, top everywhere. So I would be very supportive of our school so long as we continue to work at it and bring it to that level. So I just hope that we can do that. My other comment is towards Brother Salim. Brother Salim and I have been here in Toronto since 1966, know one another really well, and those were the days when we were only 5 Shia families. So he knows me and I know him. He was saying that you will not racism if you don't look for it. By golly, there's so much racism. I'm not interested in the fact that there is so much racism. I'm concerned that there is so much racism and that our young people are attacked. They don't even know that they are being victimized. For example, students who are doing their PhD or universities that are in their final professional year in engineering have been targeted. Okay, I'll see how you graduate. They don't want them to graduate. They've taken their tuition for so long. And this PhD student is in the final stage of putting their pieces together. They've decided, no way am I going to give you this. I know this because I have worked with several PhD students and I got them through. I have worked with at least 15 students that were on the verge of being thrown out. And we got them back, and we got them on track. It's not our perception. One dean said to the kid, "Why didn't you tell me that you had a trump card in your pocket? I would have touched you." Okay, so believe that this is happening. CAS, just
Yeah, sure.
CAS is another area. I just want you to be aware, that's why I'm raising all this. The number of children that get apprehended, they really didn't do anything. They were targeted only because they were Muslim kids. They were picked up. The mother went looking for her children, she got put into jail. So I just want you to think, talk, decide what we should be doing. Thank you.
You know, a lot of the discussion and everything that happened today about integration and open-mindedness and embracing the Canadian society and thinking of this as our home, I feel that most of us who are here are already practicing that. The question is, how do we take this message to the masses where it needs to be taken? I mean, for me, I think we're preaching to the converted here already.
I think, Sister Mubaraka, what you were talking about, the thing about racism, one evening I was driving back and there was a live interview of Wahid Abdul Hamid. He is, Salim, you might have heard of him, Wahid Abdul Hamid, from Sudan. And yes, the number of times he got picked up riding a bicycle, the cops did not think that he could own it, and so he must have stolen it. The number of times he was stopped driving a car because the cops thought he might have stolen it. Having come from that background, and he used to stand on Yonge Street downtown and strum his guitar with a little basket out there, and that's how he started. And today, what he is doing is turn the table completely around. Based on where he has been and what he has done, and the way he is being honored. But he wasn't just, he's helping out new people that are coming into the country, and in the mainstream areas also. Today he is one of the most recognized musician, director, developer, promoter, and this is what it is. The has-beens are the ones that have been talking. So I thought I would just add that, and I'm sure you people have had your Purple Hearts, that a lot of it was being aired here today. But then, where do we take it from there? And what are the lessons that are being deployed in the process? So I thought I would just share that with you.
Sure, I'll let Salim have the last words. He has a privilege. Very quick comments. I think on Islamic schools, we need to, my comment was based on that these schools should not be closed schools. They must be the best schools that we can. And our schools, which may have Islamic environment, need to have a facility where they can admit non-Muslims. That was my point. Yes, we should excel in education. So, Sister Waraka, I agree with you, our schools must be the best. I'm so pleased to hear that it's a great school. Does it admit non-Muslim students? I don't know. If it doesn't, I'd recommend that they think about it. Insofar as, and I'll let Salim take on the racism issue, yes, there is racism, it's how you deal with it. But I'll let him address that in the interest of time. Great question by our sister there. How do we take it, with, preaching to the choir, as it were? How do we take it, out to the next level? Well, each one of us is an ambassador of the values if we believe in this. And change only happens when we talk our near and dear ones, we then expand over, and slowly, the thing gathers steam. I'll leave you with a favorite Urdu couplet that I have, that हम अकेले ही चले थे जानिबे मंजिल, हम अकेले ही चले थे जानिबे मंजिल, लोग आते गए, कारवा बनता गया. The idea is that people will join. If the message is right, people will, it's our duty as ambassadors, everyone here, to talk to 5 other people in the community. That we went to this seminar, this is what we heard, there's a video online, go check it out. That's the least we can do to promote it, so we'll be able to take this. One day we will be able to have the mainstream of the community embrace some of these values, and we need to work within the community to try and do that.
Immigration to another country is the toughest step one can take, because what happens is you lose your basis, you lose your reference points, you lose everything you are made up of, and you have to now go into a new country and you have to really readjust yourself. And many people cannot handle changes. They can't do that. People are afraid even to move from one apartment or one home to another home in the same region, in the same town. And that is also a challenge for people. They can't handle it. So to uproot yourself from your friendly and comfort environment to come in here, any other country for that matter, is a tough act to follow. You can't write rules that everybody should follow. It is really an individual matter. People have to deal with it the way they can handle change. Some of us can go through integration and assimilation and come out of the process intact. Others lose themselves. So it depends on what is your comfort zone, how you handle it. All I am asking you people to understand, and hopefully that you will, that we do not hold the monopoly on goodness, nor do we have monopoly on God. God belongs to all humanity. He has breathed His Spirit into all of us, and we are, if you look and know people around, you see goodness in every one of us. So that will be the level in which your comfort zone will rest. How far you want to go with individuals, you do it yourself. Racism is a sickness of society. It's not only our thing. It's not only white against non-whites. It's happening everywhere. And that doesn't mean that we should condone it. That doesn't mean that we should accept it as a way. But I find personally, that if the other aspect of racism or prejudice is that they want you, whoever does the prejudicial thing towards you, they want you to pigeonhole yourself into the area where they think you belong. Well, your job is to fight it. Your job is to not take the pigeonhole they build for you and you build your own pigeonhole that makes you comfortable. And if you deal with it, then hopefully in time you will deal with the issue. Otherwise, it's tough. The best way for us to be Muslims and to hang on to our culture is to go to India. Or go to Africa. Or go to the Middle East. You want to do that? I wouldn't want to go there if my life depended on it. Honestly. You do not know what freedom is until you live here, and then you go back and say, oh my God, look at them. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our illustrious panel. On that note, I'd like to close for the afternoon. Just for the end, I'd like to go to Yusuf Sergi for the last remark. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. It has been brought to my attention that Salim, you are known as a terrorist. And you suddenly have terrorized us today. So I am told. I also know about Dr. Wajid. Salim has talked to us from the outside in, and Dr. Wajid has talked to us from the inside out. And we thank you both. It was entertaining, it was educative, and we certainly gained a lot. We thank you both very much for it. But I would also like to take a couple of seconds to thank the original formers or initiators of OIL program. Because what OIL has done, in my case, at least, and I'm sure others would agree with me, is that you have given us alternatives. You have given us options, and you've given not only us as older people, but our younger people also options in two ways that I can think of very quickly. One is that it has given us an option in venue. We can come here, relaxed, easy to sit and take in what is being said. That's one, the venue part. When you go to other places, it's congested, loud, and it's kind of difficult to participate in what's going on. But the second part is more important in that you have given us an alternative perspective to our situations. And that alternative perspective is what we wanted our children, young people to listen and to be exposed to. And you have done that. And to OIL, I thank you very much. Finally, we should be assimilating and integrating both together, because I don't know if you've heard about this story in one of the Kavita books in Gujarati in Zanzibar. Salim, you must be familiar with that, which says, Kullu Canadian Jannah. Can you understand?
Thank you, Manasirji. I think when you say, the opportunity and the facility being accorded, the two key individuals and those who are pioneers that come to mind, definitely where the cornerstone was stayed and stays, we owe a lot to Dr. Abdulaziz Sajadina as the founder member for the Organization for Islamic Learning. And then definitely one other individual that we need, I'm going to ask you to always remember in your prayers for the Shafa, and that is Mwana Mamdani, with a lot of respect. For somebody, he has been where I am today. He took this, he set it up so high, it is beyond, and I struggle and stay awake. How do I come anywhere near where the benchmark that he has set? So with that, it is your support, and you coming and participation is what gives us a strength. So for that, on behalf of the Organization for Islamic Learning, I want to thank each and every one of you, and most esteemedly to you, Salim, and Wanawati. Ahsan, Jazakallah. Thank you.
Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you. Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you. Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you. Oh Mehdi, we're waiting for you.
Our lives are dark and our hearts are broken. Now is the time for your intervention. There are no choices left, there is no option, there is no hope left. You are the chosen. Our souls are dying whilst we are still alive. How can we go